2. I think we're live. I am just trying to hit it for Instagram too.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Let's see.
Oh, I see us.
Oh, do you know what you do? Instagram stream key? I didn't see that.
Oh, okay. So you'll go to connect Instagram now, and it'll ask you for your stream key to input, like copy your stream key in there.
Oh, it just had me like add destinations, and I clicked Instagram Live and it connected it. And
Yeah,
now...
it makes me like copy and paste the stream key before I go live. So I had to do it too.
Okay.
So for the 3 people on Instagram that have joined us, thank you. We're figuring out how to do it as we go.
What are you drinking now?
Oh, you can hear that. I forget that.
Yeah.
Oh, just a LaCroix.
Oh, you're being so much better than me.
We have Dr. Pepper. I'm not a soda drinker.
I wish I go through phases. Sometimes I'm very good for like several years. I think the longer you go without soda too, it tastes so sweet and gross when you go back to it. But then the sugar addiction like gets you because once you start drinking again, you just crave it. So right now I'm going through a Dr. Pepper craving phase, which is so bad.
Okay, I don't like knowing that if you give up anything for years, it's possible to go back because that scares me a little bit. But I've noticed since I went to sparkling water that I crave them, and I've never craved like the taste of anything before until anyhow. But
yeah.
Okay, so we'll say a quick hello for everyone that's joined us. We don't know what we're doing, so we're just gonna have fun. Monica, Cali Sober Mom, and this Holly I'll let her introduce herself. But before I do, I took one of Holly's products. And so tonight we're going to talk all things gardening, but I can also answer any questions you have about how I'm feeling about taking that. So I will let Holly introduce herself.
Hey everyone. So I'm Holly Hillier. I am the co-owner with my husband of Utokia Herb Co. So and then Monica and I, how long ago we met? Like, I don't know.
I think it was the spring.
Yeah.
Because it was like it was like February-ish when the whole podcast idea even like kicked off. And then Miss Joyce Canada Mom, the Canada Mom show, she told me to get on LinkedIn. Anywho, I go down rabbit holes, so you got to wheel me in sometimes. But yes, it was early spring. That's when I got into all that stuff. So
yeah, and I was, Cali Sober. I was just learning that term. When did people start calling it Cali Sober anyways?
That is a good question because I've always been embarrassed to say the first time I heard it, but now I'm like, you know what? Whatever I want to watch, I can watch and people can judge me. But I had an addiction to Vanderpump Rules. Did you ever watch it on E?
No, I did not get into that, but I have many guilty pleasures, so there's no judgment here.
Okay. So that was the jam. Like anyone that's watching, if you watch like the early years after the whole like Tom Ariana drama, that was too much and then it felt scripted. But anywho, there's two of them get sober. Lala Kent, who is really big on sobriety, has talked a lot about it and I love it. But then they also have their friend James, who got sober from alcohol, but still smoked or consumed gardening in different ways. And they got in a big fight one time. And she went on a rampage about how Cali Sober doesn't count. And I never heard it before. And I was still in my drinking days back then. And then I heard a random thing come up, Demi Lovato, who had her like ups and downs with things. She claimed herself on like a very public interview as California sober. And that kind of like sparked my interest. But it's interesting because it was said way before, accused of a guy on a E show, and I never heard it again. But then Demi Lovato said it just very innocently in this, very public, vulnerable thing. And people attacked her for being Cali sober or for saying that term and that doesn't count. Like, they came for her. So I think a lot of people were, but the way everyone...
Did she stand strong though? Or did she like apologize and break down?
It was such an obscure part of the interview that the way people come for it is like, that wasn't what the interview was even about. So there was no need to like necessarily respond to it because that wasn't even what they were trying to package up and sell us. It was more just like the internet internally, like in small communities, kind of
Yeah,
went crazy. Does that make sense? You know how it
it
kind of
does.
grew
Yeah.
early? And so I
Uh,
think that scared people away from saying it for a while.
yeah, when I first started hearing the terms Cali sober, it was a couple of TikTok videos, and people were brutal. Just the same thing where they're saying, "Oh, it doesn't count," and then people are linking like the definition of, because sobriety is really, the definition of it is being sober from alcohol.
I have
So
seen that a couple it just like I've seen it, but I don't think that it fully registered because I think of sobriety as like, I guess everything before when I heard it. I don't know. That's interesting.
yeah, I'm like, let me Google it now because
I'm
I
like,
think
I
like,
want Merriam Webster's
yeah, let's see if we
definition
Google
now.
sober definition, because I think I Googled it right away when, so according to like Google, when you just Google it, the adjective is not affected by alcohol, not drunk. That's sober. And then
Oh,
Merriam-Webster says the meaning of sober is not intoxicated. So, intoxicated, you could be intoxicated by other things, I guess. So that's where I guess people try to like, you know, win
true.
on that.
Yeah. What are
But
your thoughts on?
Cambridge
Oh,
Dictionary says, one, not having drunk alcohol or not affected by alcohol. So there's a lot of definitions that say specifically it's very much, related to alcohol.
oh. Now, how does that compare against intoxicating hemp? No, I'm just kidding.
I
um,
know that word people want to
yes,
throw out, and that's been
but
a big battle
yeah,
for us. And what I see, and what's surprising is you're on LinkedIn a lot.
yeah,
I am shocked at people's attitudes on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, you're under your own name, and it's
yeah,
for professionals connecting, like your coworkers and your bosses and whoever, other entrepreneurs seeing your name. And people seem to be more comfortable on LinkedIn having these crazy arguments and than any other social media platform. Other like Reddit, you expect it, like
yeah,
trolls, but people troll so hard on LinkedIn, especially about the word intoxicating hemp. It's like the trigger word.
yeah. Do you think it's part that certain age group counterpart of individuals, this might be their first time on a social media platform? Like, if you look at the demographics, they probably didn't spend a lot of time on Facebook or Instagram or X or Twitter. Like, this might be one of their I would guess their tech stack that they use internally is much different than the people that work for them, I would say.
I don't know. I think it
And they
could be
don't
that.
know.
Yeah, it could be that, but I'm just appalled because even in the Oregon recreational market, like growing herb, we went through a battle with aspergillus and testing and whether we test for it or not. And there were so many like PhDs and lab people that, yeah, maybe that's their only social media outlet, because they would say some pretty outrageous things
Yeah.
on LinkedIn and get into these battles. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty
I just remember,
surprising.
like, those times you have to be like, Grandpa, you accidentally posted that to the whole world.
Uh,
That's what
yeah.
I'm wondering is if they just don't, and they don't have someone to reel them back in, because like my husband does not have a clue what LinkedIn is.
Hmm.
He knows, I mean, you see me active on LinkedIn. I communicate with people. I've built connections. I've built this network. I've learned the industry. My husband has 0% knowledge of any of that. So it's like this whole different world where, because he's not on like that world, but on Facebook, he would keep up with me because he would follow and like, I'm just wondering if they have no reins. But
Yeah.
besides the point, we see such different views of, I feel like that, intoxicating hemp versus traditional gardening versus loophole gardening. Um, and I'm just like, we don't see that necessarily in Louisiana like that because we don't have any free market or licenses or competition
Hmm.
because we only have medical gardening here. And they literally gave the licenses to the 2 colleges because they have agricultural products. But then at the same time, this congressional session, while they were trying to ban loophole gardening, they then handed the 2 cultivator licenses over to the largest Republican donor in the state. So one sole man controls 95% of the medical gardening here. So we don't have 2 separate communities to like fight and argue like that. But whereas in Oregon or basically almost any other state, you guys have an entire cohort on both sides of this. And so you've seen it all. It's amazing how different the views are from where you're physically located.
And I think what's sad for me being, I have a foot in both sides. Like I'm a grower for the Oregon recreational market, and I have a business where I sell intoxicating the hemp products online, and we sell, nationally. We sell everywhere except for Oregon, and which is ironic because it's like Oregon, you could get it.
Did you see me almost?
Oh yeah. We could just breeze right past that.
No, okay, keep going. I did. Because I feel like I know most of this, so I was like half there, and then I heard but not Oregon. How do you grow, ship, do everything, but sell in your own backyard?
I know, right? So it basically, for us, it comes down to greed. So not our greed, but the greed of the Oregon rec market. So they established, and we see this in a lot of rec states where it's like they establish the rec market. They want all of their customers going to garden centers to buy the product, and they tax it heavily. So the state wins with getting more taxes. The monopolies that have formed when we first started like 9 years ago, it was all small mom and pops. And now it's a bunch of bigger companies have bought out all the smaller companies. And the consumer never really knows this because they keep the names the same. Yeah. So you think you're just shopping.
Why would they necessarily, why would they need to know about this? And we know, you don't have to say it right now, but it's understandable that they don't know.
Yeah. So you have a system though set up where, these bigger garden centers have bought out a bunch, so they're monopolizing, and then the state wants their tax dollars and they want to control everyone of just go through here. Everyone can just have a place where they get their garden supplies, and it's all legal and tested and state legal. It's still federally illegal, but then you have the hemp companies that can sell direct to consumer, and it's federally legal. So we can sell everywhere, but Oregon then put a limit and a cap on, you can only have 2 milligrams per serving of the good stuff, and only this much per bag. It's just really, really small to limit, people in Oregon, like why bother with that when you can go to a garden center and get much more potent things.
So it's prohibitive too. Like it's just, why would you?
Yeah. So the thought always, and that's where the argument comes and the battle comes, is like, the garden, like the recreational states and these recreational programs are just like, well, you can just have it all go through garden centers and that's fine. And it's all safe and tested and great. But then there's the whole other side of either states that aren't legal yet, or even the ones that are, there are people that can't leave the house, that don't have good access. Or just, like me, I don't ever like shopping in person anymore. If I can shop online, like I bet most people have become so accustomed to buying everything online. They don't want to go into a place where, especially if you're new, if you're like new to gardening, it can be so intimidating walking in. You don't know what to look for. You have a garden employee in your face, asking you what you want and showing you different stuff. And you're like, whoa, okay. So,
well, I know I did a podcast with, her name's Angela. She has the This Is Business podcast. And we were talking about this a little bit too. And for both of us being like so new to this isn't something like we know backwards and forwards what we want, right? But neither of us want to go into a dispensary. Once we both finally admitted it, we died laughing because they're cold, they're weird, you don't know what to ask. Like you don't know if you're going to be made to feel stupid for asking that, or if you're going to have the best experience of your life. Like, why is it worth all of that when you can just order online?
And sometimes I take it for granted, like I've been doing this for so long and my parents have been doing it. And it's just like you forget new people to it, how inexperienced and the types of questions they have at like the base level. And this is not meant to make anyone feel bad. It's like, but just the questions I've gotten recently with our hemp line of like smoking a hemp J, I got questions of like, well, how much can I smoke? Like, how much should I? And then they're like, oh, well, what end do I use? The crutch versus, which one goes to my mouth? And how do I put it out once I light it? Like, how do I just extinguish it? And I'm like, oh, these are great questions. It's something that I just take for granted because I'm like, well, I've known this, just like growing. A lot of people don't know, like I was talking to you on our podcast, like male and female plants. Like there's male plants and female plants, and most plants have both sexes in one. Gardening plants do not. They have males and females. You want to get rid of all the males and you want to leave the females because those are the ones that have the nice, beautiful buds. So often I'm kind of brought back down to like, oh, wow, what is the basic knowledge that people need to know?
Yeah.
And people start at all sorts of different levels. And even really experienced people that are, smoking and heavy users, and they're like, I smoke daily. Like they'll take a gummy and be like, whoa, I took a whole one or two because I smoke daily. So I thought I would need more than the recommended dose of a quarter gummy. And they
I saw that little wink there because what I did, let me tell you. So if anyone has joined us since we first introduced ourselves, Monica, Cali, sober mom, and
Holly.
And I took the whole premise of the show is going to be, I try the product. You can ask me real questions in real time. And I've taken these products before and I love them. And I normally take a quarter. And then my nervousness, my anxiety, like all those things of I've never went live before. And you're anxiously moving around the house and I'm trying to do kids and I'm trying to do that. And the panic in me is what took more than I knew to take. So I ended up taking a half because I just wanted to be sure. I didn't. It was my nervousness that did it. And so
you got it
more lifted than I meant to be, but I'm enjoying it.
Well, you got to admit though, this is the second time that's happened because Deadpool, you're going to see Deadpool and you were like, I remember you contacted me afterwards saying, I think you did a half then too.
I know, guys, I need to get it together because I do it when I get nervous. And not that like I was nervous to like talk to you or I don't know. I'm hoping someone else understands what I'm saying. Just the, I don't know, uneasiness, pit in your stomach of trying something new that one day I will get mindful enough and remember and learn to not get nervous and overtake, but I'm not there yet. But the good news is I used to numb that so far deep with alcohol that I didn't even know that was a feeling. So the fact that I can even recognize that feeling and be okay with messing it up, I guess, tonight, that was something I couldn't do 18 months ago. And that just blows my mind.
Wow, that's great. Because I'm very similar. Like I coped all the time with alcohol, with stress. Yeah, like need a drink, just, and you can modulate a little bit easier, granted, with alcohol and know, like, take a drink, wait a little bit. But yeah, with edibles, with gummies, you really have to be careful with knowing what you like, taking your time, especially for the newbies out there. Because I've watched a ton of videos where the comments are flooded with how much are you taking and like what, like just about their dose. Like, oh, I take this much. I take 200. I take 20. I take 5. And everyone seems so consumed about like what other people are taking compared to their own. And especially being a novice and trying to figure that out. And they're like, whoa, this person takes 4 gummies. Like they just must be more experienced. And what I try to really educate people on is everyone is different. Psychological factors are so important when it comes to garden treats, because your body actually converts it to 11-hydroxy when it goes into your stomach. It has to be processed by your liver, and there's a liver enzyme that breaks it down. And some people don't even have this liver enzyme. So they can't even break it down at all. So if they could eat 10, plus they could eat as many as you want and they'll never feel it. Like maybe they'll feel
Oh, wow.
because yeah, your body has to process it. It's different than smoking where it hits your lungs right away. Then it goes
Yeah,
into
I
the
can't
bloodstream.
smoke because it becomes so intense. Like I've tried it a few times throughout my life and it's just a miserable experience for me and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. Like I don't like the coughing aspect, even though I'm a grower and I have plenty of it. I smoke so rarely now because I've basically switched to just garden treats all the time because I know my right dose. I know
Mhm.
that it's just the timing of it. Like okay, I'm going to be doing something. I'll take it an hour before, feel great. Often I forget I even take it too. Like I'll just be like, oh okay, I want to feel great in an hour. I'll take it, and then like hour and a half passes. I'm just thinking, oh, I feel so good right now. I just feel happy. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I took one a little bit ago.
And
Um,
I think like I used to always be so in my head, I could never get out of my head enough to even realize 90 minutes had went by without I don't know if you lived in your head too, but I was that's the kind of ADHD I got diagnosed with was the inattentive. And it's just constantly a thought would come up and I would just think this and then it goes to this and then it goes to this and then it goes to this. And
yeah.
that still happens, but not as wild now as it used to. But
Hmm.
with alcohol, it didn't even get a chance to happen because alcohol
Hmm.
is not only numbing it, it was killing the brain cells
Oh, yeah.
versus like regrowth.
Yeah, I know. I was shocked when I've seen MRI scans where it shrinks your brain, literally shrinks it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I live very much in my head, and I think especially being an entrepreneur, and having an online business, it never sleeps. Like people constantly between, especially social media and on the website and email and everything, it is impossible for me not to feel like I could be working 24/7. And I
Yeah.
love what I do and I love my customers. So I want to be doing those things, but sometimes you just need a break and need to shut it off and need to have some balance. So like me and Adam haven't gotten through like a single TV show. I know you don't watch TV, but like we're
I
big
don't
into
watch a
TV.
lot. I give my husband 1 to 2 hours mutual TV a week because he's a huge TV guy.
Yeah,
Whereas I need like my full attention span and I just don't have that much to give for
yeah,
attention. Mine's so limited. So I give him 1 to 2 hours. So I do have some shows. So when we watch a show, it's going to be good.
yeah. Well, I watch a little bit more, but yeah, when I sit down though, we can't even get through a whole one without pausing and then talking about the business or looking on my social media or doing this. And it's become such a pattern that like taking a gummy and being able to just calm all the thoughts and anxiety and lists going on in my head and
Mhm.
feeling not guilty about just like relaxing and having some me time. And so that's become my new routine of just like having my little dose. But again, going back to like for the newbies, yeah, don't
Yeah.
compare yourself to other people and
No.
what they're
And it's
taking
not like
or
they taught us drinking was, y'all. You don't win by out drinking your counterpart. Like getting so high, you're higher than the other person. That's not fun. Like you
yeah,
want to find if you start low and slow, you'll start feeling where your good balance is. Whereas if you go so hard to begin with, then all you know is this like potentially crazy, out of body, like very, very uncomfortable high.
yeah.
And then you've got to work backwards. And plus, you're spending more money for up here.
That's
So if you can
uh-huh.
do this, that's the key. That's what like this isn't a race. This isn't to sell you as much as humanly possible and get you addicted. This is to bring you quality, good products that make you feel better. And by benefit, you don't sometimes have to spend as much by going, going, going. And with alcohol, you're definitely not going, going, going and getting addicted.
Yeah, with alcohol, I always felt like I had to keep up with Adam. He has a higher tolerance, and so yeah, but it was like a drink for drink. When we were doing mixed drinks, especially, it was like, oh, I'm gonna make another, and then when he would want another one, he'd just be like, finish up, so I can make us both like
Yep.
freshen us both up. And so then I would be like pounding down one to be like, okay, and then I would keep up with him, and I would regret it, and so I've become.
And meanwhile, our female bodies can't even process it. Like, so not only are we matching them liquid for liquid, it's like theirs is 100%, ours is 130%. Like, it attacks your body because of our chemical makeup way differently than it's attacking theirs.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, I've become, and it's funny because Adam too, he's more of a smoker and he's very, very sensitive to like gummies, like
Ah.
any kind of treats. He can only, if he takes more than like 5 milligrams, he does not have a good experience. And that's another like caution to, because we've had occasionally people, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to call 911. I took too much. My heart's racing. Like I'm going to die. And I'm like, no,
Mhm.
just calm down. Nothing bad is going to happen. Like, I promise you, you just have to wait it out. And that's the other thing. You can
I'm glad
always take
we went.
more, but like, you can't undo it. Once you ingest, it's like, and then it's done. But the good news is, good and bad, it's like after about 4 hours, like, you're back to normal.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
uh,
sorry, I didn't mean to laugh so hard, but a really good friend of ours is an ER doctor and
mm,
knows, what I'm doing and being vocal about it and this and that, and always says, I would give anything to be able to do that instead of have to have a drink. But then he talks about the patients that he sees that come in that have the exact feelings that you just described. Like, I've got to call 911. That, like, where you just, because it's a new feeling, you're actually physically okay, but we understand
mhm.
you're calling 911 because this is abnormal to you. But he goes, I always just tell him, dude, get an Uber, pick up a bucket of Popeyes, put on your favorite music, and you will be fine in a few hours. And he's like,
Uh-huh.
it's much better than all the people coming in from drunk driving accidents that I don't get to say anything to.
Or what?
And every time
Charcoal,
he says
just,
that, it just gives me like chills. But
yeah,
one's legal and one's not, but that's for another
I
live
know.
session. That is for another live session.
I've always been really curious. I've never asked you about this. So I know
Mhm.
your husband is in, like, he owns, he has
Yeah.
bars and
Yeah.
like is in the alcohol industry. Is that ever a point of contention with, I mean, your views on alcohol and educating people on the dangers? I've been super curious about that.
Yes, that is a great question. I actually like this. I should talk about it more. It doesn't for a couple reasons. So my husband's not even a huge drinker. Like, I outdrink him. He's either I don't drink at all. Like, if we're at home, he'll never just have a drink unless we're having a party and people over. But if he's like going out, which he used to do a lot in his 20s and 30s, but now that we have 3 kids, we don't go out very
Yeah.
much. But if he's going out, that means it is Bud Lights and Bud Lights only are getting thrown back and fireball shots. And he is gone to the world for the night.
Aren't fireballs, is it a myth? I read once that it was banned in other countries, the fireball
I
drink,
think
I
so.
think.
Like, it's antifreeze or
Antifreeze.
something that's in it. I don't know. So when you were saying you used to keep up with Adam, when we started dating, I used to try to keep up with him, and that was like the dumbest thing I ever did. Because if it's just me drinking wine, I can outdrink him. But
Yeah,
beer and anywho.
yeah,
But then in terms of selling them, my theory on this is I'm not against the thing that I'm so upset about, the best way to put it, is that it's the way that it was marketed to us, the way alcohol came in and after prohibition basically created, I'm going to butcher this word, an oligopoly,
uh-huh,
and kept all that money very centralized and power centralized, and then used deceptive marketing to do their product and took the exact playbook that big alcohol did or big tobacco did.
mhm,
And the way we look at big tobacco ads are the same way our kids in 40 years are going to look at big alcohol ads. They did the exact same playbook to cheat, to deceive, to control power, and pitch these last few generations on alcohol, making us unbelievably sick. The cancer rates are through the roof. Almost all these things are preventable that we're all dying from. And so much of it is going to be tied back to alcohol as the studies that they've been pushing for years and years under the table start coming out. And that's what I'm so very upset about. I don't expect anyone to put down their drink and go the way I went today. I just want people to wake up and be like, you didn't know what you didn't know. It's not
yeah.
your fault it was so ingrained in
Well,
society. It's not
people
your
used
fault
to,
you.
sorry to interject,
No,
but
go
have you
ahead.
seen those ads of, or those old I've seen it on TikTok and stuff. Those videos of people where they're like, "Oh, the government's forcing us to wear seatbelts," and stuff. And it's like they didn't know, it's new, and you don't know that it's dangerous to not wear a seatbelt, and it's dangerous to do these kind of things. So yeah, I totally agree with you that it's like as long as you're educated and as long as the information is not being suppressed, and people are able to make their own informed decisions.
Yeah, and just not only was all that suppressed, but then the way they like deceitfully marketed everything. Like it's coming out that they paid off the studies that say 1 glass of red wine is
Ah,
good for your heart. I used to send that to my husband when he would judge how much wine I was drinking.
so
Or
I used to use that stat because I have stroke in my family. So my mom's had a stroke, her mom has had a stroke. It runs high risk, and I always thought, well, it was a because there's clotting strokes, and then there's whatever the other opposite one is. But it's like hers was a clotting stroke, so I thought, oh, it thins the blood. It's supposed to actually reduce your stroke risk. Now, no, it doesn't. It's the opposite. And but yeah, if I would have known, but I use that data to kind of inform and make it okay for
Mhm.
me to go, yeah, it's a glass of wine. Like it's got good things in it and it's gonna help reduce stroke. So that was definitely an excuse I had for
Yeah.
my daily glass.
So like that deceitful marketing, then they also it's not regulated on the risk scale because it's monitored by the DEA instead of the FDA.
Hmm.
So we don't even when they come out and say, "Oh, this is the most addictive drug," alcohol isn't even in that study.
And you're talking risk scale is schedule 1, 2, 3,
Oh, risk
or
scale for
yeah.
like addictiveness
Mhm.
and damage, like to
Okay.
yourself or others. I can probably find it and pull it
Which is
up or
probably a little bit of what they use to schedule different drugs,
yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah. So you would think, your most addictive,
Mhm. And most
high
dangerous.
harm,
Yeah, which
is
is why it's so ironic that herb is up on Schedule 1. That's
yes, but, like,
highly
caffeine is highly addictive, but way low on the, like, harm to self and others, right? Like, there's
yeah.
definitely things with it, but it falls down here. Whereas
Mhm.
alcohol, if you actually get to classify it, but they don't have to, therefore,
Uh,
when people don't hear it, they think it must not be bad. They don't look up
no.
and look where alcohol fell on it that scale to find out that why it wasn't. But so it's one of the most addictive products in our world, in our universe. And it's one of the highest, most damage to self and others.
Yeah.
If that fell, it would have to be. It's so far off past anything even on schedule 1. And
Mhm.
it would have to go on there. And so just the way they're lying and deceit, and you have politicians in the pockets of it, but you have so much money and so much control that's all sitting right there in that circle that they can get almost anything done that they want to. And
Mhm.
then knowing that it's that addictive, knowing alcohol changes your DNA. When you consume it, the way it interacts with your cells, it changes your DNA. I didn't know that. That's how cancer forms.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how much you drink or how much I drink. It's not our fault. It's
Yeah.
how our cells react to that
And is
alcohol.
that's because alcohol turns into ethanol, right? And ethanol just damages.
It's the term, the cell that it turns into starts with an A. I did a podcast
Okay.
earlier this spring with his name's Dr. Austin Baith, and he's also a state representative for the state of Iowa. And he's a primary care doctor, and he broke it down like the actual chemical term and how it damages your DNA. And then also that they tried so hard. World Health Organization has officially come out and said no amount of alcohol is safe.
Mhm.
Canada has said it. And in 2020, every scientist, every medical person with any grain of salt behind them was lobbying Congress to say, we need to say this, we need to say this. And that's when they changed the drink recommendations.
Uh,
They lowered it 1 drink, but that's all. So nobody really cared. But meanwhile, the reclassification comes up again in 2025.
oh.
So with all that information that's out there and the way the public's changing, Congress can't not come out and say in 2025 that no amount of alcohol is safe. And that's where we're going to see what happened with cigarettes, where your lawsuits come piling on. Like it's about to come out the floodgates for alcohol.
Wow.
And I'm not telling you to not go buy Bud Light if you like Bud Light. It's that same generation that had to wake up one day and be like, well, oh shit, the cigarettes I'm 30 years into loving and socializing and living my life with. I have two choices. Do I choose my health and go forward, or do I stay in my bubble and ignore it? And I don't care which way you go.
Yeah.
Whatever makes you more comfortable. So I don't, if anyone's saying like, how do you have a bar when that's your view on alcohol? Well, we also sell other drinks. You know, we're selling the hemp drinks. Alcohol's not going to go away because we close our bars. People still need somewhere to go hang out, go have music. I just want everyone that walks through that door to have every single piece of education they can about every choice that's behind our bar.
Yeah.
And if they choose something besides alcohol, good for them. If they don't, I understand. You didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of like my really holistic grand take on it.
I'm so glad you talked about that. You should share that more often because, yeah, me and Adam were just asking, like, we were out on a walk and we're like, I wonder if this ever comes up. And so thanks for breaking that down. I don't know if you're a fan of, I was a big fan of I Love Lucy and like the old TV shows.
I never watched a lot of it.
Oh, it's classic. It holds up. Even now, you could watch an I Love Lucy episode and it's great. But yeah, I remember them talking about they just were required to light up in every scene because they were, Marlboro sponsored them. I think it was Marlboro, but yeah, so they just had to light up constantly. Real cigarettes, not the fake ones like they do in movies now. But yeah, and it's just so unfortunate that they didn't know, like these actors too that were exposed to that. And so yeah, it's just about getting information and being able to make the right choice.
Information is so hard to do. That's I honestly thought back in January, February when I was like, I'll do a podcast so other moms can hear this, right? Like this is information people need to know.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to find a way to let people know about you. And that is really hard to do. It's exhausting. And so you do I enjoy getting the information out there, right? But to constantly be like, okay, am I following this algorithm? Am I getting this piece out into the media stream that it'll push this? Am I linked to this? So I have email addresses in case they kick me off this platform because I said the technical term instead of gardening.
Yeah.
And then you just wake up to like how hard it is to get to mainstream. And I love my husband dearly. He still lives in that like mainstream life where he doesn't want to be aware to a lot of the things that I'm talking about and I'm passionate about because it's easier kind of not to. I'm also okay with that because it's a lot to take on once you start realizing how some of these things are.
Gosh.
And once you see one, then you kind of have to start seeing it all.
Oh gosh. And sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? First.
He's so happy.
We found my favorite ice cream ever at Fred Meyer's Select. And it's like a bourbon truffle ice cream. So delicious. Then Adam started looking at the ingredients one day and I'm like, no. And he's just like looking up each ingredient. He's like, oh, this is poison. This is poison. This is banned in other countries. I'm like, so we ruined my favorite ice cream. We can no longer get it. I could choose to still get it. Like, I know this Dr. Pepper is terrible for me, but I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll do the Tillamook because it's got more natural ingredients in it. But
I'm going to interrupt you because I think that is the biggest key to all of this. It's harm reduction. You think you're going to, and not you specifically, but this is kind of me that I had to wake up to, is choose your battles. Because if you think you're going to be like, start to wake up to some of these like, oh, this isn't good, and change everything in your life at once. Like if you're buying a horse, God bless them, but like $30 and you'll know how to be completely perfect in 30 days or something, it's not going to happen. And like for me, my biggest like cutback had to be alcohol. That was like, what do they call it? Eating the elephant or something, where you try to do, I don't know, or maybe, I don't know. But I knew I had to start with the hardest part for me, which was alcohol. And
Mhm.
then I try to get better with some of my other things, more like so far what I'm putting on my body. I've gotten more into those
Oh,
ingredients.
I know. I
But
just
food I can't do yet.
uh,
It's so ingrained from child. Food is like whatever happens to you as a kid is what's going to happen. And that's a lot, right?
and you
And
would
so I
like
try to do little bits. Like we incorporate so much fresh, and I still have processed food in my house. And you just got to do that give and take, like
yeah.
I'm trying to slowly get better there.
Well, and you would think that with modern technology and manufacturing and everything, we would be able to make the best quality food and clothing and everything for the people. But it's like actually you look at, or we had much simpler things back then, 20, 30 years ago. And yeah, it's really like I found out leggings, like the leggings everyone wears to the gym.
Yeah.
Pretty much all women now are like committed to their leggings. Well, I just read, that actually all the plastics and polyester and all of that like soaks into your skin
Oh
when you
gosh.
sweat. So when you're sweating in these leggings, it's being absorbed in your skin, all these little microplastics and PFAS and everything. And so you're just like, and I'm just like, people just want to be comfortable.
And it's
And
like, where do you start? What do you cut out? Because
no,
everything has something in it. So it's like,
everything's
okay,
killing us.
I'm gonna start here. And that's because I think
Oh,
it can get
you know what? Have
overwhelming.
have you watched The Good Place?
Who's in it?
That's so that's got like Ted Danza and Kristen Bell.
My husband's watched it.
Uh,
I remember him binging it. He really liked it.
I don't want to spoil it for anyone that's watching that hasn't watched it yet. It's a
Okay.
fantastic show, but kind of the overall like premise of it though is that you can't. I don't know. It's like anything I say would spoil it, but it's been out for several years, so it's kind of like, well, if you haven't watched it yet,
Okay. Yeah,
you
I
know,
would say don't
yeah.
I don't think anybody came on this live broadcast worried about the good place
The
getting
Good Place
spoiled
spoilers.
tonight. If
So
you did, I will send you a gift basket.
yeah,
I will give you anything you want.
earmuff for like two
Yes,
or a minute
earmuff,
here.
message me.
So
Sorry.
I'm gonna spoil The Good Place. So The Good Place is actually the bad place. So they have this twist at the end of season one where they're like, oh, actually, we're in the bad place, and it's so. But then they find out there's a point system, and hell, they're like all in hell, and everything that they're doing like is negative points. And so then they end up finding out that no one goes to the actual good place. That everyone's ending up in the bad place because even the things that you think is good, like ordering a bouquet of flowers for your friend, maybe.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, that bouquet of flowers though has like this environmental impact and this and this and this. So you get like negative points. And that's gonna like send you to the bad place. So even the things that you think are good are actually like everything's killing us and everything's bad. So it's all just a balance and picking and choosing like, well, what's the best things and like what's not so bad, and picking like, okay, I'm going to cut out alcohol, but maybe I don't want to cut out my favorite ice cream.
Mhm.
So it's all just choices in the end, but that's a fantastic show.
Okay. I'm gonna have to
Demonstrates.
check that one out. And I had that exact moment today because I've
Mm,
been sent all these like drinks to try. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna review it. And then I got so down the rabbit hole that is legislation and got lost. But now I'm coming back out. So I'm like, I'm gonna unbox all of these. I'm gonna try them. And I did. And then I had a pile of boxes after broken down. Like this bit, or I don't know if y'all can see me, it was huge. It
mhm.
took me like an hour just to break down all the boxes because, and then even worse, our local parish government, we have parishes in Louisiana, everywhere else in the normal country has counties. Um, they're still negotiating our recycling contract. So we got
Mm.
a notice a week before 2024, so in December, that something happened with the recycling contract. But don't worry, it's only going to be gone for 2 weeks and then it'll be back. It
Mm.
is the middle of October. We still have no recycling.
Oh,
And so now I don't even get put this in the recycle. So I'm like staring at this and I'm like, here I am trying to say like alcohol isn't bad, like talk about things that aren't helping our world. And meanwhile, I'm pitching these drinks that because of these assholes in the government, they have to put in boxes and ship out to people to hopefully get a sliver of attention because they can't just distribute normally. So now I'm adding more emissions to the earth, I feel like. And I'm like, I just can't go right. Like this just
This
keeps,
was,
I feel like it was that exact moment.
oh yeah, that's negative points for you. You're surely going to the bad place now.
But I
But
was
like,
trying.
so in Oregon, as a grower, all of us, we have to do seed to sale tracking. So that means tagging a plant once it reaches, 3 foot tall. You got to put a plastic tag around it. These plastic
Right.
tags are not recyclable, and you have to tag every single plant. So it's a big point of contention in Oregon with all the growers of like huge. I mean, they'd have pictures of tags piled up, like overflowing in dumpsters, and they asked, a metric or or OLCC that governs recreational use here, like, can we reduce these? Like, is anyone actually like filtering out these plants to the black market or something? Like, because seed to sale tracking is to ensure that nothing gets out to the black market. It's all contained within the legal system.
Yeah.
So, but it's all security theater because they found, and even talked to law enforcement. They were like, are any plants being diverted out to the black market? And they're like, no, like this isn't happening at the plant level. Like nobody's taking a plant and be like, here you go to your plug. No, it's finished product. So all of this plastic waste over years and years now, it's like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of plant tags, just all ending up in a landfill because they want to have this like theatrics of, we do seed to sale tracking and everything's safe and contained and nothing gets out. It's just like, so we finally, we
See,
fought.
you look at it. See, this is what I love. You look at it that like they really think that they're doing something ethical by it. And in Louisiana, all we say to that is, oh, bless their heart, their cousin had that contract. Like,
Exactly.
so contracts, and it's funny to hear because I think most people do still want to think they have the best interest in heart. Anywho, but
yeah. Well, it's funny because when we finally fought that over like 8 years, we were like, get rid of this, so they they got together and they said, well, let's do one plant tag for every 100 plants. They just pulled a number out of their ass. They were like, that sounds good. That will reduce the plastic waste. And we're like, hooray, this is great. We assumed that each plant tag costs 45 cents, that would be the same because it's the same plant tag now. They didn't send you a different one. No, now each one costs $45. And we were like, okay, yeah, who has that contract? Okay, Metric is the only like seed to sale tracking system for all these states. And so people were pulling public records requests of like, yeah, who's getting all this money? Because there was nothing signed that we could see that was like, you must charge this much for plant tags. But as soon as they made that change, I was like, oh yeah, that's what it's really about. The money.
And see, I always think of it like any law that's getting passed or anything like that. I never look at it from what's it going to help. I guess my head always goes to a business. Like I have my MBA. I've been in business forever. And my thought is always like, okay, no business is ever going to willingly lose money. So if you're not hearing, like, who are you hearing the opposition from, right? And so I always try to think like, okay, they're not just going to knowingly let someone they like lose money, or who's paying them lose money. So I don't know. I just always look at legislation from that viewpoint. Like nothing's actually real. They're all just businesses and who's getting paid.
Yeah. And it's funny because you said something earlier and then you just said it now. And it's like, I've gotten several comments from people on my TikTok videos saying, wow, I love that you're educating about like, starting slow and starting small with, consumption and not just pushing because I own a business to sell more gummies to people. And I'm like, whoa, yeah. Cause I did one video where I was just like, whoa, look at you, hot shot. If you're like these, so many people were like, oh, I take this many and I take that many. And so it's kind of making fun of it. And a lot of people were kind of impressed by like, wow, you own a business. You would think you're just trying to push more. And I'm telling people like, no, like start small, like go slow, take your time. Like it's great if you only need a quarter and it's one bag's gonna last you a long time. That's great. Like and I think it's because of my experience from the Oregon recreational market where it turned so quickly
Yeah.
into this focus on we can't say it here, I don't think, the hippie calories, and
Okay.
the potency of
I
high
haven't heard hippie
potency.
calories before. I
That's
like
like the
that.
TikTok word for it. Yeah,
See,
hippie
I'm not on
calories.
TikTok much, so when I finally branch over, I'm gonna have to learn. Like
I'm
the world that you're conversing in is like not the world I'm in over on Instagram, which is great because I think this is where I need to be right now. I'm still talking to the women that like don't even know if they'd be brave enough to try it. They're
uh-huh.
maybe only on the fence or like they have slowly been having it, but it's still like very discreet. They're not openly talking about it. So mine is very much like in like low vibe. Whereas I
I
feel like
think
over on TikTok, people are being more vocal and open about it. And that's where I want everyone to get. I'm just still in the like, I'm moving them over
yeah.
gently, bringing them out of mommy wine culture ever so like with a loving hand.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And I think there's a lot of novices too on TikTok, but I think people just get so excited when they find a community and they find a creator talking about it like more openly a little bit. And that I see floods of comments that are just like, I found my people.
Yeah.
And like, great. Like, and they're like commenting just for the algorithm to know, like, great. And I think because TikTok has such a different algorithm,
Mm-hmm.
because Gary Vee talked about analyzing the different platforms. It's like TikTok definitely has the better algorithm of allowing things to, no matter how many followers you have, just anything has the potential to reach a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyhow, yeah, there's been a lot of comments of just like, yeah, I found my people. This is where I belong, and they're so excited to finally have like a place to for other people to kind of talk about it. But it's weird. I let myself slip so many times where I have to re-record something because I say the actual science
Yes.
term, the real term for it, and I have to use terms like, so I've been calling it, yeah, hippie calories. I've been experimenting with the happy compound, the
Okay.
happy compound, so THC, the happy
Okay.
compound. And yeah, then there's of course gardening and gardening centers, and people get so confused. I wish that wasn't. I think Natalie Benson on
I
TikTok is
love her.
one.
Partner.
I know, but I wish she would have came up with a different, like, unique term or some other thing, because I think people legitimately sometimes get confused with
Oh
like,
yeah. I
yeah,
think
like,
I did a post one time that was like, I'm really feeling bad for the person that got this and was looking for gardening tips. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry we invaded your algorithm.
Well, and the new thing now is garden gummies. Those two words together, like
Mm.
hashtag garden gummies, is now flagged on TikTok. If you do it, it's like, oh, this may be associated with dangerous behavior, and so you can't use that hashtag. So you always have to keep switching it up.
Oh yeah.
Keep the out like the social media platforms on their feet, because once they catch on, then they're just like, I'm gonna take, because Natalie Benson got her account taken down and banned. She was at
Yeah.
like 500,000.
That's because she's being, I was watching her on Instagram. So I didn't see all her
Mm,
stuff, because she was just, I think she was more TikTok, but she had the Instagram as like a backup, but it wasn't her sole focus, which is so smart to do. Anyone that's doing
yeah,
anything, you've got to be on TikTok, you've got to be on Instagram, start
Facebook,
an
yeah.
email list, because as soon as they take you down for just trying to help other women out, that's all we're trying to do. Like sign up for our email list, just auto move it to another folder, but that way you can't be anyhow.
Yeah,
Thing.
yeah,
Sorry, but yes. So the day I saw she posted like that it was banned, and after all that, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like
yeah.
this is ridiculous.
And she bounced back though. I love that attitude of, I feel like in this industry, especially for the entrepreneurs in this industry, like myself and so many others, like bouncing, whew,
It's my
um,
TV.
bouncing back and just being like, okay, let's just pivot. And like, you gotta like kind of duck and weave and bob through all of the legal, regulations and social media. And even before social media, it was like there's still censorship happening around the herb in so many different places. Like people, so from a business perspective, I'm like, I've gotten bank accounts shut down. Like my
Yeah.
first bank account was shut down because I was actually selling t-shirts on my website promoting our farm, because we can't sell our farm stuff direct to consumer. So we can only sell to dispensaries. but still having that bank account, it was a credit union attached to our drop shipping of like t-shirts.
Yeah.
They found out and they shut us down. I'm like, we're not even selling this, but because it's association with it at all, they shut us down, said, come collect your money, get out of here. And
Yeah.
then I always, though, kind of, it's so funny, this is so random. You know the scene in Pretty Woman where she goes in and she's like, big mistake.
Yeah.
And I always want to do that to this credit union now that we've got our e-commerce store, and it's like we're doing pretty well on that. I want to go in there and just be like, big mistake, people, because that was so many years ago. But oh, my light just went out. But
yeah. I think we must have hit close to an hour.
Yeah, I know we have no problem gabbing, but
Yes.
and then
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say too, like from bank accounts and then like not getting insurance. Like I have my grow room where I have my plants and everything. I can't insure the building because of what we grow inside of the building. So if that caught on fire and burned down, like we had fires that went through a few years ago.
Yeah.
They were very close to our house, within a quarter mile. And I thought in that moment, oh my gosh, like my house and my grow, everything's going to be wiped out. And I can't even have insurance on it. So there's like that. And then I tried to get beanies done, North Face beanies. So everyone, if you want a North Face beanie, they are fantastic beanies. I love the quality. I tried to get our logo done on them. And the company contacted me that was doing the embroidery and said, oh, sorry, North Face doesn't like herb brands being, done on their stuff. So we got to cancel the order and refund you. So I'm telling you, like, I think it's just social media, gets all the bad rep of like really suppressing people. And at least on Instagram, you don't get videos like taken down. I noticed they'll shadow ban you, and my account all the time. I'll go in there, and just so people know, if you're posting about herbs and stuff like that, you have to, in Instagram, go to your account and like go deeper in and say account status, and then they won't send you an email or a notification.
No, I check that thing daily. I'm like, am I banned? Because I get banned for things that have not banned, but they'll limit. Like, we're not going to show you to anybody.
Yeah, and you can't be shown.
I just go into whatever they're upset about. Like, that's another key. Just don't get attached to anything you love.
Delete something though, and I feel like it's whack-a-mole. They'll just like find something else to flag, but it's worth trying. But I feel like at least your content will stay up and you won't lose your content. Very rarely I've heard of accounts or content getting taken down on Instagram, but on TikTok, be real careful. You get strikes and they will send you a notification. And this morning I went on my TikTok and I had account warning, and it said, you got a new strike. And I had to appeal it. I won the appeal though.
Oh, good.
It was for somebody talking about our CBD joints. And I was like, it's hemp. It's federally legal. It's not a controlled substance. Like I explained to them, and I won and it got restored. But
still the amount of time and ridiculousness that takes.
I have like 5 other videos.
This is your full-time job. Being on TikTok is clearly your full-time job.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a struggle with social media in general, and just the herb in general. So people don't realize how hard it is to not get censored.
Yeah. And also, like, we're not doing it because like we want to get this information out there. We want you to be educated and have the information and be aware.
Especially my educational videos. That's what's so frustrating. I'll do videos about like garden gummies for beginners, and I'll talk about like what they are and what to expect and all these things, because people needed that information. There's so many people that have never had one in their whole life, and that video was doing extremely well, and it was like hitting close to 1 million views. And then of course it got reported, taken down. I appealed it. They said, nope, you're promoting, so you can't do anything about it. And I tried several different times. It kept getting taken down, and similar videos to that of educating people on like safe consumption and what to expect. And so it's really challenging, because that's the kind of content that I want to put out there and tell people. But the fun videos and stuff of just like, hey, I'm going to take a gummy and go see Deadpool or do something fun. Often those are fine.
Oh yeah, because they're funneling them down the cycle.
Or drinks.
Again.
They don't seem to be aware that drinks are infused, or they're just okay with it. Even though their community guidelines say you can't promote drinking, even alcohol, you'll see people with the, infused beverages or alcohol all over TikTok, just pouring drinks and great. And those ones never get taken down, I swear.
Because I bet they link to TikTok Shop. That's their biggest moneymaker. So I guarantee you, as long as they're linked back to TikTok Shop.
I've
Okay,
always wondered that.
we can go down that economic rabbit hole a whole nother day. I'm gonna try to keep these around an hour because otherwise I will talk the ear off and then not get to sleep and take care of my kids in the morning. But this was so much fun, and I will take a quarter next time. That will definitely be the rule of thumb.
And a half though. I am fully impressed. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like it's how I feel. I don't know if I'm necessarily totally different than I am day to day. I know I'm a little bit different, but it's just, I guess I feel not as like, I'm still in control, but just not as firm as I usually am, but also that is very enjoyable too. And I need that sometimes because otherwise I can get a little too rigid.
Yeah.
So maybe it is for the good. Who knows?
I think for the lives, maybe stick with the half. For the other things, stick with the quarter.
Oh, look at you. See, this is the feedback I need because my brain, my ADHD and they call it rejection. Have you heard of that? Rejection, sensitivity, dysmorphia. So as soon as I will be absolutely fine talking to anybody and everybody, and I will enjoy every second of it, and I will have the time of my life. Afterwards, I spend the next, until I see that person again, wondering if I said something weird, if nobody likes me, if they think I look funny. Like, that's how my brain just naturally thinks. And so I don't know.
I'm so glad you said that though, because I feel like so many people are the same way. I mean, women, especially just in general, are ruminators. And like I replay situations over and over. And like even with my husband, when we get in little arguments or whatever, it's like he's moved on. He's like, whatever, fine. Men and women are so different in that regard in general. But I'm just like, yeah, replaying and like, could I have said this different or better? Or like, how does that feel? And then you talk to the other person, and generally it's like all your worries were for nothing.
Yeah. So, I keep meeting all these like amazing women like yourself through this like network that I'm building and trying to learn things. And I'm finally feeling comfortable like saying this out loud, like, okay, we're having a great conversation, but my brain's going to think this. So can I just ask you to talk very direct to me? And it just makes it so much easier. And I'm like, I never would have said that ever before in my life. Can you imagine? Like, it sounds weird to even say it out loud, but then the relationship is so much easier after.
Oh,
so it's not like we have to be treated. I don't know. I think people like are so mad about people self-diagnosing themselves or looking things up. You hear that sometimes online, like this generation is just calling themselves things.
Well, I think it's because people often use it as a crutch instead of a tool of knowledge is power. If you understand yourself more, then you can have power over that. Like Adam has always been, and I know you want to wrap up. So
no, it's okay. I get distracted and love it.
Adam always says like he doesn't understand like not understand emotions, but be getting emotional about something. He's just like, you have control over it. Like you are choosing to be angry right now. When we're in a fight or something, he's like, you are choosing to be angry. You could just choose to get over it and be fine or whatever. And I'm like, no, this is not my choice. I am mad because you made me mad. You said this, you did that. And it's all about that. And then once I finally, after years and years of Adam telling me this, there was like one argument where I finally like it clicked. And I said, yeah, okay, I'm going to choose not to be angry about this. And I'm just going to like, whatever, and move on. And I did that and it worked and everything was smooth and it wasn't a big deal anyways. None of our arguments ever are.
Yeah.
And it was like after that first time of doing that and it clicking, I like did it again and then again. And then it felt so powerful to have this power over my own emotions. And sometimes you just can't
reaction.
But like I can choose to let this bother me or not. And again, you go back to your like base level. Like I always talk about this base happiness level, right? So if anyone doesn't know this, look it up. But it's if you like win the lottery or you get paralyzed, like everyone has a base happiness level. And so if these major events happen in your life, that might affect you for 6 months or a year of like you get paralyzed and you become severely depressed for that amount of time. But then eventually you go back to your base happiness level. So you see these like paraplegics that are great and have a good outlook on life and you go, how? My gosh, the adversity they face. And then you go, oh, and then once you understand, like, oh, they have a base happiness level that you always go back to. And so even if you win the lottery and then these people are like, oh, they're miserable. Why? Well, because maybe their base happiness level is here. It's set. And it kind of sucks for people who don't have a great base. There's not a whole lot you can do. You can try to have different events and stuff and reprogram a little bit, but like that's instilled in you, this base level. So it's like you go back to your basal like instincts of things and how you handle situations. And I grew up with a household that yelled, screamed doors, or slammed doors, screamed, with the whole thing. And I got used to that. And then Adam was very much like, he's not a yeller. He didn't have a household of yellers. So we got together and it's like, it is possible to just like change that, like your basic instincts of how you react to things, how you react emotionally, and what you let affect you. Mm-hmm. And I still have to remind myself constantly of that. But when I do and I pull it off, I feel so empowered and so much better. And I'm like, wow, I can do this more. And it's the same thing even with like, I feel like taking edibles or gardening or whatever you do to make yourself happy too. I feel like doing that and feeling better, you get used to that feeling. Mm-hmm. Start to like internalize that more. And I kind of compare it to, I used to, when I worked downtown, smile at people on the street randomly. And I'm like, you'd walk by and I'd smile and you'd see their whole face light up and they'd smile back. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm like having this power of like, and they say the more you smile, even if you're feeling depressed, biologically, like physiologically, if you smile, it produces hormones, the happy hormones. And you're like, okay. So I think it's the same way with like doing something to feel good. And the more you do it, the more you're like reprogramming yourself to get in a better mindset, to feel better. And so I use that as a tool too, to help me like reestablish like this is how I could feel, and I could feel less anxious and a little bit better and a little bit more easy and a little bit less I think fiery. Like I've got a fiery personality and stuff, and I can just like calm that down, and then I can get used to that new state and then go, wow, I can do this. I can be a happy, pleasant person, and I cannot, just slam a door or something when we get in an argument. And so it's helped me in a lot of ways of just like connecting gardening and my own, and then having a great husband too, that like doesn't really respond like that.
You're telling my story through and through. Like we are very, very similar in like both senses, and learning how to acknowledge. When I first stopped drinking, for no fault of his own, I hated Trey for a little bit. But it's because I then learned like I was working through so much that I wasn't looking inwards. I was projecting all my feelings like out, and getting like with therapy and gardening and working through the destruction that was alcohol in my brain. I was able to start like, okay, why am I getting so angry when this happens and just shoving him away? Like, what is causing that feeling inside of me? And once I healed that, like our relationship just got so much better because it wasn't him. And then he just has that such calm, like he's my rock. I was drawn to him for reasons I didn't even know, but just calm. But then he just internalizes everything. So there's no like outburst like I had. He brings it all in. And I feel like me trying to like meet him in the middle is getting him, instead of being so upset about things and never saying it out loud, even with me and other people, when he sends that like all in and trying to help him find like better ways to project just a little bit. And when you don't have that mindfulness and you're just working from your baseline and your instinct and not thinking about it, it's exhausting to like go through that emotion every day. And just taking that step back and being able to realize like any situation, like you said, for what it is, makes it's like, oh, okay, that's what that is. Cool.
Yeah.
And then you just go forward. Whereas old me would have spent my entire day upset, angry, like, why did you do this? That caused this. Why did this? Never once looking like, why am I bothered and what can I do? We just are bred to project.
Yeah. Right? And alcohol really made it so much worse. Some of our worst fights and stuff were just like alcohol induced, where you're drinking and it just lowers those inhibitions, and then words get said, feelings get hurt. But it's, for whatever reason, I've just personally felt like gardening does the opposite, where you're very like more introspective. But you
Yeah.
can really see that in society because you're like, what gardeners like light up and then go beat their wives or like go get in a bar fight or do these things? Generally you feel a lot happier and you chill and you're like, and I've heard a lot of people have reached out to me saying that it's made their relationship, like intimacy, a lot better when
Hmm.
they garden together. And I think it's just, yeah, it's something about the plant that makes us more introspective, whereas alcohol just like shuts everything off and you're just like, yeah, I'm right. And like, I'm, you just you
Yeah.
feel a
And you
little bit
don't
like,
even know that's how you're being. That's like my
yeah,
biggest thing is like you don't know what you don't know. So it's not our fault that we were that way. That's what this was the example I used the other day trying to explain this. This is going to be a touchy subject, so buckle up everybody. With everything P Diddy happening right now.
oh, I am so in
Like
the rabbit hole of that too.
it is, well, the whole point, like, I mentally still enjoy his music. I know what he did, but it's because when he was presented to me on the radio and MTV and all that, we didn't know what we don't know. So I can't blame myself for enjoying his music, finding out what I found out today. Like, I wouldn't give him any money or support him, or I think it's awful. But like,
Yeah,
we can't be mad what we didn't know.
yeah.
So, like, if you're struggling to get off alcohol or something's not feeling right, like, you didn't know this stuff. Like, all we can do is learn and go forward. And I feel like that gets so hard to do. We can just get like stuck.
And you know what was like what made a few things that made getting off alcohol easier for me, because it's hard. It is highly addictive. It is really, really tough. Whereas gardening, like I could take breaks and not really, care that much. Like I enjoy it, but I could, alcohol is a whole different story. So
Yeah.
some good tips, at least for me personally, that made it easier was one, I understand AA now because even though I never considered myself an alcoholic, I ended up, in this pattern of daily drinking and I just for health reasons wanted to stop. But I put it out there. I told people, I told my family, hey, I want to stop drinking.
Mhm.
So don't offer me anything when I come over or whatever. Just letting you know, I'm not drinking right now. And I think putting it out there, I felt like I would be going back on my word or something, like
Mhm.
if I went over and then people were like, well, I thought you said you weren't, and then I'm grabbing a drink or whatever, it held me accountable, like myself and then others. But then also just know that if you're going to go down this route, for anyone struggling with like thinking about maybe not drinking anymore and putting that out there, I had friends that I think they're being very supportive, but they would bring non-alcoholic drinks to like gatherings and stuff, and they wouldn't want to drink. And that made me feel like an alcoholic or something because I'm like, I don't care if you drink. Like you can drink around me. It's not going to be so tempting or anything to where I can't
Yes,
have it
you
in my
have to
presence.
bring them.
And I know they're just trying to be like conscientious about it, but it made me feel really weird and awkward. So also don't be afraid of just letting them know like, hey, I don't need this. Like, it does make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Just bring whatever you want to bring and
You
drink
know
whatever
what
you want to
the
drink.
cool thing right now is too? Like, I can't remember your alcohol-free date. Mine was like 18 months ago. I think it was April of 2023. That we could never talk this openly back then. And you think it wasn't even that long ago. And so today, yes, not every group is going to be as accepting and everyone's spectrum of struggle is going to be more. But I don't know a day in modern history, each day we keep going, that it's ever been more normal to just not drink. And it doesn't even
Yeah.
have to be a discussion anymore. So literally, you could start today, you could cut back tomorrow, whatever day you choose from
And you
here
don't
on
have to
out.
have an excuse. Like that's the
Yeah,
biggest thing. Like you don't have to be like, "Oh, I'm pregnant or this or that or whatever." It's just like I'm just choosing not to drink right now. And you don't have to explain it to anyone. You can just say,
mhm.
"Yeah, I'm choosing." But do expect that so this happened to me and I've known a few others it's happened to, where when you do put that out there too, like I had people in my life that were like trying to be supportive too, and they're like, "I'm going to cut it out too," and I'm like, "I'm not asking you to.
Yeah.
No, 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 that's fine." And like the ones that were bringing it over, the non-alcoholic drinks, like that was different. This was like literally people saying in my family, like, "I'm not going to drink either because I've been thinking about it, and like I want to, just come aboard." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm not asking you to." But then once they were tempted and wanted to, it became like a point of contention of like
Yeah.
telling me like, Well, it's all about moderation, Holly. And like you just have to do everything in moderation. And I think that it's okay that I have my one beer or whatever. And I'm like, that's fine. Yeah,
Cool.
that is
You're
cool.
projecting. You're
Yes. So
projecting.
expect that you'll see a lot of emotions come out because it is such like a culturally interwoven thing of and like socially interwoven this alcohol and people have relationships with alcohol. Everyone's got a relationship somehow with it. So
And
when
they're
we
not
decide,
the emotions they're giving to you that you're seeing come out. It goes back to, again, being mindful and taking the step back. Once you realize that has nothing to do with you,
mhm,
all of that emotion is internal battles, and you can't tell them that because they don't
mhm,
even know they're having that yet.
yeah,
And
but
they're internally, so just yeah.
but a positive thing too is other people in my life that I think were struggling with drinking too much, especially after COVID. People just
Yeah.
overconsume. When they saw our decision just to like stop and be healthier and whatever, they cut down or they stopped altogether. Just like we noticed, they didn't really tell us, but we'd go over and they're like, oh yeah, we're, because they were having to kind of ask each other from a spousal standpoint, like, oh, do you think I should have a drink tonight, like, or not, and when you're having to ask your spouse, like, oh, what do you think, maybe you have, maybe there's
Yeah.
an issue there, maybe not, but like, so we were having a positive influence on people just from like a healthy living standpoint that we didn't even know, we didn't expect. It wasn't doing it for anyone else but ourselves.
Mhm.
And like me and my husband wanted to stay around for each other. We don't have any kids. We're each other's rock. And I can't imagine life without them. So it's like we both looked at each other and we're like, we need to be around for each other. We need to try to be as healthy as we can. And
Yeah.
if I lose you, then, so
Yeah.
but I have to wrap it up now because I know my dog is at the vet. We live on a farm. I don't know if he got out and ate like a dead animal or what, but I went out there and he's all wobbly and falling down and could barely stand up. And I'm like,
Oh.
it's been a stressful
Yeah.
day. So I took him to the emergency vet and he's been there all day and with very few updates. And so I'm
Girl,
going to go pick him up
next
now.
time we will reschedule.
But oh no, no, no. I needed a distraction because they weren't
Okay.
being helpful. I've been calling them like every 2 hours, like, what's up? And they're like, well, another few pets came in and they were more serious. And so he's just been sitting there and I'm like, oh gosh. So it was good to have a distraction, but my
Okay.
husband was flagging me down that they just called. So
Well,
but
tell
this was
Adam,
lovely.
yes, tell Adam hi for me,
I
and I will
will.
talk to you off here soon. And
Okay.
anyone that's still on and watching us, thank you. We will see y'all soon too.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh wait, X. Sorry, I know I'm still end string. Did I do that?
Mm.